start recording as well. All right. I just want to just make sure everyone knows where to find. It's where the. I just want to be sure you know where to find the agenda. What I try to do, I always try to get the agenda up there at least the day before. So you need to go into the group wiki to find it. And it should be sitting, whatever the topic is, I've put the agenda right on the top. All right, so as far as the Artifact 2 assignment, handing it in, so everyone has turned it in, and then
I just submitted it, like right now.
Oh, okay. All right. So with topic 1, the focus was on imagery, and topic 2, the focus was on kind of exploring different text forms. And we looked at different forms like the postcard poems, the pantoums. We looked at some different types of forms like that. And then for topic 3, and it's organized around the question of basically how the idea is like how much you want the reader to see, or how much. It's almost this idea that you can deliberately hold back certain information, and the effect that can have in writing is sometimes quite effective. So it has to do with kind of the vision you have for a specific piece of writing, and it's almost like how big a vision, like how much do you want to see or tell in this particular piece of writing. And so what I wanted to do is kind of look at a couple samples of kind of holding things back. One of them is a poem, and the other one is something you probably are aware of already, something called a 6-word story. I'm wondering if people, are you familiar with the 6-word story?
It sounds familiar. I'm not sure if I'm thinking of the same thing. But maybe.
I remember having to write one last year.
Okay, was that for grade 10?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's not a bad exercise. I know in the grade 10 program, the 6-word story is used to generate ideas. And then I think the activity with the English 10 program was you actually chose one of them and you expanded it. Okay. Yeah, so the way I've tried to set it up is like fairly consistent format with separate pages for the material that I introduce. I'll put it into what I call Dave's file folder, and then there's a page called basically growing the content, and this is where you add content to the class or to the course. So there's different like learners have introduced things that I was very unfamiliar with, and Peyton, I did poke around with that one link you provided.
Was that the foundation, the SCP Foundation?
Yes, I found that quite an interesting writing community. It was almost like it was a world within a world. And did other people check that out, like Liv or Olivia?
Sorry, what was that?
No, Peyton put something in. Okay, each of the topics will have a page called growing resources or adding. This is like something self-design is trying to do, is have learners more active in bringing content to the courses. So one of the things that Peyton brought was, was it horror? What kind of genre was it?
It is horror, but it doesn't necessarily have to be all the time. Some of the articles are just weird. Some can even be kind of funny. In fact, they have an entire section for ones that are too ridiculous to be on the main list. They're called joke SCPs.
Okay. Well, I noticed that they had their own form of March Madness, which, okay, it actually ended last night, but college basketball has what they call March Madness. So there's the men's and the women's, like Division I basketball, and there's a tournament, and they start off with 64 teams, and then you end up with 2 teams that play for the title. And so I noticed there was a page on there where different writers, I think, were competing.
Okay, yeah, they do run contests sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just find it's really, like, I would never in a million years have found that website. It's just not on my radar for a number of different reasons, right? So the thing with the course is so for each topic there'll be an artifact, and I'll try to generate some writing prompts that can kind of give you some ideas for how to kind of create something that kind of fits the overall kind of goal of that topic. So for this one, like what I'm thinking of doing with this one is just making this one more limited. Like the first one, the imagery one, I think took a fair bit of time, and the text one took a fair bit of time. And I know for a while it kind of took a while for learners to kind of get a sense of what I was trying to introduce. So, and the purpose is for the artifact that you just turned in. What I was hoping for was either you kind of chose a text form you're not familiar with and try to break it down into how it works, or the other way was to actually write within a text form that was somewhat unusual for you. And I haven't had the only piece of work I haven't had a chance to look at so far is Libs. But I'll give you feedback. And my thinking is maybe to come back to that work next week. And, if people want to share it, that'll be a good time to share it. Okay, so for today, what I want to do is show you two things. Okay, and so I'm just going to screen share here. Okay, so I put the content that I introduce into what I call Dave's file folder. Okay, and I'm not sure if this is probably not the most effective way to share it, but if you want to go in there yourself, so it's in the group wiki, it's in topic 3, and it's in Dave's file folder. So because this way you can actually scroll through it independently of me. So just let me know when you all have it, where you can see it. All right, so are people able to find it?
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got a poem in there, and then below it there's some more content, some very short stories, and I took most of this directly from the English 10 course. or at least the very short stories. Okay, so so I just wanted to give you a little bit of background information on Raymond Carver. Has anybody heard of his name? Okay, I'll take that as a no. So, okay, the genre of the short story, probably in the last, okay, let's say the last 30, 40 years, Raymond Carver, he's been credited with, in many ways, kind of reviving the form. The interesting thing is every time he won a major award, like he's won the Pulitzer and other major awards, he would actually use the money and then write a book of poetry. So I think in some levels, he really did. He appreciated poetry, and this poem here is actually about. This is a very autobiographic poem, and the reason I brought it in was because it focuses on a particular moment, and it also, in my mind, kind of leaves a fair bit of white space for the reader. It doesn't tell you everything, but it tells you enough. And so what I'll do, I'll read it, and then if ideally what I'd like the people in the class to do is just think about what it reveals and what it doesn't reveal, because that's actually that's kind of the what we're going to work on today in terms of like the 6-word stories, because essentially they reveal certain details, but then leaving a fair bit to the imagination of the reader. Okay, so I'll just read it, what the doctor said. He said, it doesn't look good. He said it looks bad, in fact, real bad. He said, I counted 32 of them on one lung before I quit counting them. I said, I'm glad. I wouldn't want to know about any more being there than that. He said, are you a religious man? Do you kneel down in forest groves and let yourself ask for help? And you come to a waterfall, this blowing against your face and arms. Do you stop and ask for understanding at those moments? I said, not yet, but I intend to start today. He said, I'm real sorry. He said, I wish I had some other kind of news to give you. I said, amen. And he said something else I didn't catch. And not knowing what else to do, not wanting him to have to repeat it and me to have to fully digest it, I just looked at him for a minute, and he looked back. And it was then I jumped up and shook hands with this man who had just given me something no one else on earth had ever given me. I may have even thanked him, habit being so strong. Okay, so I'm just going to stop sharing for a bit. So I'm not sure if you need time, but with a poem like that, what are some of the details of what's actually revealed?
Well, I'd say it's very apparent that he has lung cancer, this individual. Even if I hadn't known that the author had lung cancer, that would have been my assumption, was that it was tumors they were talking about with the 32 of them.
Okay. I mean, it's hard to me to imagine to write a poem like this. I mean, he's revealing something, like he has a cancer that's going to kill him. Can people think about maybe things that are held back?
I don't know. Something that stood out to me is that neither character in the book has a name,
Okay. Well, that's good.
which I
Okay.
find really, really interesting because I don't really see much work often where the characters don't have names.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's really interesting because I mean I completely overlooked that. Yeah. So the doctor is simply the doctor. Um, now, one thing I like in my mind, like there's a question about is he religious, and I'm not really clear, even at the end of the poem, whether he is or not.
Yeah, what I kind of picked out of that is that maybe he didn't have faith in God, but maybe he wants to now that he has like such bad news.
Yeah, it's kind of ambiguous, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's unclear. Um, okay. Um,
If I may, I did catch a couple other things too. There's the thing that the doctor said, which we don't know what it is, and it's also never elaborated on what it is that he thinks the doctor has given him.
mhm.
Now, I could take a bit of shot in the dark and say that maybe it gives him the confidence to do some things he's wanted to do because now he has nothing to lose. But
Mhm. Yeah, so yeah, he refers to the gift. Yeah, yeah, shook hands with this man who had just given me something no one else on earth had ever given me. And even, okay, I would argue in that last line where it says, I may have even thanked him, habit being so strong. So it's unclear whether he thanked him or not. Um, yeah, so yeah, I just wanted to just kind of, I know it's a kind of abstract idea, um, kind of deliberately not giving the reader information. Um, and I, now I can't think right off the top of my head, um, but maybe some other works that you're more familiar with. Like it, now, can you think of examples of where other writers have done that? Okay, Olivia, can you? You're still muted.
I was just going to say, can you hear me?
Yes.
Harry Potter is an unreliable narrator.
Okay. In what way?
Well, he's a kid in the first books, and like he doesn't see people the way other people see people. And then when you get an omniscient perspective for some of the books, they have different descriptions.
Oh, so in a sense, you don't trust the initial descriptions. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I'm mentoring a couple learners in a grade 11 course, and Margaret Atwood often, according to the learner I'm working with, often will use an unreliable narrator. And so what you end up doing, you end up questioning whether or not the information you've been given is actually accurate. And then if you've made assumptions based on that, okay. All right, so,
Not in the sense that it's changing the plot. You know?
okay.
Yeah. Well, and I noticed like not necessarily in books, but they do that a lot in like TV shows and stuff, where they'll like totally hint to one thing and then it'll be told something totally different, just to throw you off.
Okay.
Yeah.
like a twist.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, like for today's writing prompt, I'm gonna give you some options whether or not you want to kind of work in prose or poetry. And so, okay, the next thing I wanted to look at was the right below it, where it says the very short stories. The very short stories. Can people just scroll? Are you still on the same page? So I'll just screen share just to.
Yeah.
I'm there.
Okay. All right. So this comes out of the grade 10 English course. In these very short stories, a lot can be said with few words. That's the trick. See how much you can express with 6 words. Very best short stories make the reader naturally want to guess at what might be the larger story behind the very short one. This gives clues to the larger plot or problem without being cliched. Now this one here, I took it just for the image. Obviously, it's more than 6 words. Now some of these I think are better than others. Yeah, to me, it's unclear. It was over. I'd felt powerful, sexy, and loved. Now an empty plate sat where the chocolate cake had been. The loneliness crept back in. To me, it's I'm imagining this person ate the whole cake. I'm not quite sure. So I don't know what other people can make of this.
They're taking solace in chocolate cake, and that's all they've got.
Okay.
So we can infer from that that their life sucks.
Okay. All right. To put it bluntly, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So now, the ones, Ernest Hemingway, I'm hoping people have heard of his name. He's I don't think he's as popular as he once was, that's for sure. Now, I'll just give you a tiny bit of backstory on him. He wrote a number of novels. He also he wrote short stories. That was his primary. That's what he's best known for. And he was part of I'm not sure if you've ever heard of a generation of artists that kind of emerged after World War I. But there was something called the Lost Generation. Have people heard of that before?
I've heard the term alongside things like millennials, the baby boomers. It's a generational term.
Okay. Now, the Lost Generation was part of a kind of a movement of artists, and it crossed boundaries between, writing and visual art. And now Picasso was considered part of that movement or part of that generation. And hopefully people have heard of someone named Gertrude Stein. She was a very famous writer. And part of what happened is following World War I, it's hard now to really imagine just how devastated people were by that war. It was warfare on a scale that was unimaginable, and a lot of people felt betrayed by their own countries, by the nationalism that kind of prompted them to support their own countries in this, this slaughter. And a lot of artists, and Hemingway was one of them, they basically said that language had been used to deceive people. It had been used as propaganda, and what they did, they tried to strip language down back to its bare essentials, almost to a level where it could not be used to deceive people. And I mean, I remember reading some stuff, years ago, that Hemingway even stopped using adjectives for color. He just, like, if you look at some of his writing, it's so stripped down. And so this one short story of his, I'm pretty sure it came out of this idea to compress things to things that are essentially truthful. So this one, For Sale, Baby Shoes Never Worn. I mean, it tells a pretty complete story, but it leaves out a lot of details. So I'm just going to stop sharing just for a minute. So now with a story like that, like what does it not reveal? Okay, Olivia, I guess you have to, there you go.
The implication is that the baby has died, but it doesn't say that. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
it
what I
doesn't.
always got from it.
Right. So that's true.
The baby could have just been born with bigger feet.
That's true. So that's very that's hopeful, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. So okay. So with a story like that, it's kind of an exercise in trying to capture something, and oftentimes there's I don't know. I'm gonna type in a term here. Are people familiar with that term, in medias res? Okay. Okay, it's Latin. It's Latin for start in the middle.
Oh.
And it's a technique writers use a lot. In fact, most movies now, start right in the middle of something. Now, there was one film that had a huge impact about 20 years ago. Now, have people watched the film called Pulp Fiction? Is anybody familiar with it?
I've heard of it, but I haven't seen it.
I've heard of it. Mostly I've just heard music from it.
That's true. That's true. John Travolta and yeah. So but the thing with Pulp Fiction as a movie is it started literally in the middle of the movie, and it comes back to where it started. And I don't want to give anything away, but it was a technique that Quentin Tarantino used, and he almost reimagined the kind of narrative structure of a movie. So the movie starts with John Travolta and another guy, and they're hitmen, and they're on a job, and you come back to that same moment like an hour and a half later in the film. But this idea of starting in the middle of something. So with the Hemingway very short story, you're starting right in the middle of something. All right, I'm just going to go back to that. All right, so now I've listed some other ones here as well. Okay, so there's the one by William Shatner and Eileen Gunn. Now, some of these writers I don't know. I know the name Joss Whedon. I think he's been in the news for the wrong reasons. Now, Frank McCourt, he wrote a book called Angela's Ashes, and it was later made into a movie. And this other one, the last one, Crefisto, I think that's like a pen name. And so what I was thinking of doing here was just have maybe pick one, like read through these, pick one you like, and just maybe kind of talk about where, like how it kind of starts in the middle, and the way it can kind of reveal some details but not others. So I'm just wondering, like, originally I was hoping to have a larger group and pair people off, but would people like to take one of these in particular? Which, can you see one that appeals to you?
I kind of like the last one.
Okay. So do you want to take that one and just, I mean, I'm not sure how much preparation you need, but I'm just thinking, do you want to just talk about what appeals to you about it?
I don't even know. I'm kind of confused by it, but I think that's kind of why I like it.
Okay. So you want to just read it aloud and then?
Okay. Are these links or is that the whole thing?
That's the whole thing. That's the whole story.
So it says, paramedics finished her text. Love you. So it makes me think that maybe a paramedic is texting someone for a patient.
Okay.
But there's a lot left out of that, like what happened to the patient, so why she's with paramedics, and who she's texting.
Okay. Does anybody else have an interpretation, or?
I kind of took that to mean that the patient is dead. Maybe that's just me, but the fact that they finished the text just kind of took my mind in that direction.
Yeah, I thought something along the same lines, except for I kind of was thinking maybe she just doesn't have use of her body, or like she's paralyzed or something.
Okay.
That could be it too.
Yeah. What do you think, Olivia?
Or to text someone, to send someone's text after they were dead, I think.
I agree, that would be weird.
It'd be super weird.
Okay,
explain all those creepy stories though. Like I got a text from my husband 45 minutes after he died in a train crash. That kind of thing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So clearly, there's a lot of it's unclear, or it leaves a lot to the reader. I think sometimes, like, I know, imagine this is something you've come across before, but there's something they refer to as reader response theory. And the idea with reader response is that the writer may have written a book, but it's the reader who actually makes it make sense. And the reader, based on their own experiences, can actually sometimes come up with something that the writer didn't intend. Maybe based on the experiences. Now, my wife and I were in Ottawa visiting some people we know, and a young man, while we were there, was texting while driving and drove right into the back of a semi-truck, and so he was dead on impact. So to me, like, my own experience or knowing this one story makes me think the paramedic was there for a car accident. That's just the way I'm imagining that. So a lot of it, like, the reader will fill in or kind of perceive it based on their own experience. Okay, so Um, now, one of the things that I put in, okay, I'm going to screen share one more time.
Yeah, I find it super interesting though, like how it's written, because for me, I'm almost putting myself in the patient's shoes for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe it's just, yeah, I don't know. There's something about it though, where it's like I'm in the patient's position or whatever, or asking someone to finish a text message for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so like, yeah, some of these, they require you to, like the one about, from Frank McCourt, the miserable childhood leads to royalties. Okay, so if you don't know his work, then, I mean, the royalties, you know, is revenue from sales of books, usually. um, but then if you know his work, then this makes a lot more sense. So his book, Angela's Ashes, deals with his childhood in Ireland, which is really grim. So that one's more of a memoir. I'd say that's more of a memoir than a story. And no, do people know who William Shatner is?
I've definitely heard that name before. I'm not sure I'm familiar with their work though.
Okay, so if anybody is a Star Trek fan,
Yeah, that was where I thought I'd heard it before, but I wasn't sure.
yeah, so that's Captain Kirk, right? Like
Oh, okay, yeah.
now he's a Canadian, and he often gets a fair bit of kind of press publicity for being Canadian. So I don't know if this is autobiographical or not, but failed SAT, lost scholarship, invented rocket. I think it's kind of clever. It's got 3 short sentences in it. And now, I'm not sure if people know that the SAT is a test American high school students do.
I remember having to do an SAT at one point and just finding it really, really annoying. Because, like, I remember some of the questions on it being, like, just kind of useless in general or kind of pointless.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's one of the, okay, so for American college applications, there's two things. One is your GPA, your grade point average, and then there's your SAT score. So different universities have different entrance requirements. So if you have a particularly, let's say a kind of modest grade point average, let's say like a 3.0, which is like a B, then you might need a higher SAT score.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a, I don't know if you call it a calculus, but it's different universities set different standards. Yeah. Okay. So this is in the Days file folder, and I added some resources, basically some links. I put in some links here, websites with 6-word story. So I found it was really quite simple. I just Googled 6-word stories and different ones came up. This one here, the bottom one, it has a, I think I may have taken one of them from here. Now, this is a really interesting wrong number, says a familiar voice.
I like that one.
I like it too. Okay, now this one, you're not a good artist, Adolf. Now, this one makes a lot more sense if you know that Adolf Hitler was actually a pretty decent painter.
Huh.
And this is where I found that paramedics finished her text. Right, so with this one, with this website at the bottom, there's a number of different, I guess, categories that have different 6-word stories. Right, so okay, now we're coming up just about on the break. But coming back after the break, okay, what I'd like to do is kind of with the pre-writing activity. I'm thinking you can either choose to use, if you wanted to use like a lyrical poem format, like what the doctor said, or the 6-word stories. But maybe what I'll do right now is give you, just think a little bit about this idea of writing from abundance. And so the idea here is that you have a choice, or you generate some ideas and you pick the best ones from those ideas. And so I just put a few things in here, like quirks of my relatives. Sometimes times I've been pleasantly surprised or disappointed. Weird things I've seen while riding public transit. I'm not sure if people can think of any other ones off the top of their heads.
I do have to say, like, it reminds me of like something I'd seen, like a small town, the public transit thing, because like just being like living in a small town, like, you know everyone. So it's like our neighbor who lives behind us, he wears a captain's hat everywhere. Not really sure why, but he does. So that's something it makes me think of.
Okay, so instead of quirks of relatives, it can be quirks of my neighbors. All right, so do people want to take about a 10-minute break? And we can come back to this. Like, I think today's class will probably be a bit shorter.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so let's take about a 10-minute break.
Hey, Dave. So I was just thinking about this. As far as short stories go, this one sentence or word, or I'm having trouble talking today. This one sentence I wrote in this book kind of reminds me of a short story, and I'm going to share it with you because it's cool.
Okay, now do you want to do it with the rest of the group when we come back?
I could show you first, and then I'll show them later. So just where I've underlined it, like right here. I don't know why. I just really like it for whatever reason.
Okay, I like it too. Yeah, I like tragic and kindness kind of work against each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just wrote that this morning, but I was really excited about it because I felt like it kind of applied to today's lessons.
Oh, good. Well, that's perfect. Okay, so we'll take a break and see you in about 10 minutes.
Okay.
Okay. Well, the thing, I'd be curious if you could talk about how what we've been talking about kind of made you think about this that you just written.
Yeah, I think it's mostly just that, I don't know, something about just those words made, I don't know, they really stuck out to me in that the main characters, something super tragic happened, but the character viewed it as a kindness. And I feel like it's super vague and it doesn't tell very much about the story, but you still get like a few main points of what happened.
So for you, so it kind of compresses, like does it kind of act as a summary, or how does it work for you?
Um, I don't even know really how to explain it. I don't know. Do you think it's similar to like a short story, or
Well, it's hard to say. I mean, it makes me wonder why someone would be grateful for that.
yeah?
It kind of makes me, it leaves me wondering about the character, and maybe makes me want to know more.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, and if you continue on reading, he's grateful because otherwise he would have been torn to shreds by like a monster, and like I don't know, his death could have been way more like horrendous, kind of. But she spared him that, and so it's like a super kind of dark thing that happened. But he's tragic for it being less painful than it could have been, I guess.
Okay. Now, okay, if you could stop sharing, that'd be great. Okay, now at this point, for the writing, what I'd like people to do is go into their personal wiki. So I'm not sure how you have organized it. Now, I'm just wondering, Olivia, would you mind screen sharing just for a minute? I can't hear you again.
Yeah, I'll share.
Okay. I just want to see how you, it'd be nice to kind of have the rough work inside of the wiki, the personal wiki.
I didn't really put any of what I wrote for my assignment into my wiki, but I can.
Okay, well, you can do it for topic 3.
Okay.
Yeah, so
You still want me to?
yeah, if you could do that, that would be great.
Am I supposed to submit my assignment into here too, or?
No. Okay, the personal wiki space. Okay, so just if you click on view your personal wiki, just the view projects. And then there you go. All right, so you can add a new page and just call it topic 3.
Okay.
And then if you click on topic 3, okay, you can just add a new content block. Okay, so you can just call this writing prompt 7. Perfect. Okay, now this is the one where I'm encouraging you to come up with a list. Okay, so if you click back on writing prompt 7, the little gear wheel, and just edit it. Okay, so so in the space below, okay, you can just write the word writing from abundance. Perfect. Okay, now so the concept is you kind of it's almost like you kind of tease out possibilities from a topic. All right, so I put in like some of the ideas for today. I okay, times you've been, okay, quirks of my relatives, times I've been disappointed or surprised, weird things I've seen riding the bus, quirks of my neighbors. I added this one, things I know about my parents. I mean, it doesn't really matter which topic you pick. Now, I know sometimes, like in the past, we've talked about experiences, like learning experiences. Now, I know some of you have been in regular public schools and not. So for this one, if you, I'm trying to give you some ideas for a topic. And can anybody add to the list or?
I think for those who live in small towns, maybe something about small town stuff, whatever's going on.
Okay. So I know, Olivia, you mentioned that you just had family from Vancouver.
Yeah.
All right. So does it ever come up, like living in the Lower Mainland? Do they live in Vancouver proper?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They live
Oh.
near Fraser.
Okay. All right. So, I mean, have you lived in the city yourself? Have you lived in Vernon your whole life?
I've lived in Vernon most of my life.
Okay. The reason I bring that up, sometimes out-of-town visitors have a different perspective when they see where you live.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, do all of you have siblings?
I do.
I know Olivia does. Okay, so maybe even, well, I come from a very large family. There are 9 kids, and so I have plenty of siblings to write about. Or even, okay, so with, now I know, Olivia, do you have brothers and
I
not
have
sisters?
one brother.
Oh, you have one brother. Okay, and you have what, how many sisters?
3.
Well, you have 3 sisters.
An older and 2 younger.
Okay. All right, so is it fair to say, would you be considered a middle child? Or you?
I guess.
You too?
Although my older sister's so old that I'm kind of the oldest child in my home.
Okay. Yeah, even things like birth order, the benefits of, I'm just trying to kind of throw out some ideas here. Like, for example, okay, I wrote something when I was taking a course when I was at SFU, and this whole idea of writing from abundance kind of comes from this idea that you've got a lot of material that you may not be aware of. And I remember I wrote a list of 10 things about my brothers. Okay, and so I remember one of the things on the list was 2 of my brothers actually ran into each other in jail, which to me is that's a pretty remarkable thing, right? So some of my brothers, did not. Well, they were not law-abiding citizens, to say the least. But even like that. So whatever the topic is, just try to focus on it, to find a topic that you can actually kind of generate some material. Okay, so I've written about my brothers. I'm gonna make a list about my sisters. Okay, and all it has to be is little details. You don't have to write whole stories. You just have to write details that will become um, possible sources for these 6-word stories. Okay, so I have my topic, and I'm going to write about my sisters. So I have 4 of them. And
May I stop screen sharing?
yes. Okay, so Olivia, do you have a topic?
Yeah, I was thinking I could write about my sisters or my brother.
Okay, and how about Liv?
I am not sure, really.
Okay, can you write maybe things about living in a small town,
Yeah.
or living in Port Alberni? Um, like,
Yeah.
like it's funny with Port Alberni. I know I've been fishing out of Port Alberni, and
Yeah.
I know that there's only a small piece of the city you can see from the water,
Yeah.
and there's all the mills, a lot of docks.
Yeah. Well, in general, it's just kind of a weird place to live. Like, people come and visit from bigger places, and they're like, "Wow, there's no traffic. Like, what's with this?"
Okay. All right. So how about Peyton? Do you have some ideas?
Yep.
Okay. So can you share your topic?
We're doing one topic.
Or one idea. I mean, you don't have to stick to the same idea. Sometimes it's easier if you narrow it down to one thing. Like, let's say things I like about Port Alberni, or things I don't like about Port Alberni. Because Olivia and I are going to write about sisters. Do you have a general category, or are you just going to
No, I'm up to 4 here, and none of them have anything to do with each other.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so are you working inside your personal wiki as well?
That I am.
Good. Okay, how about Liv? Can you set up a
Yeah.
little space the way Olivia did?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, so do people want to take like 10 minutes? Or you want to do 5 for the list, and then we'll go back and tease it out?
I figured out my topic, but so it's only supposed to be 6 words, right?
Okay, at this point, what I'm suggesting is you just generate material, and
Okay.
then some of it may or may not translate into 6-word stories. All right, so okay, so I'll set a timer for 5 minutes, and then we can maybe come back and share after the 5 minutes. And sometimes it's really helpful if other writers can see the potential of some of the ideas, which is kind of the benefit of the sharing. Okay, so I'm just going to pause this. All right, now, would anybody else like to share their list or some of the material they've generated?
Yeah, I'll share.
Okay.
Okay, so I just kind of started with a few things in Port Alberni. So smoke pillars, rainy streets, quirky neighbors, captain's hats, and bored teenagers.
Okay, I'd like the bored teenagers.
Yeah, we're kind of bored here in the winter because there's nothing to do, really. We have, as far as entertainment goes, we have a bowling alley and a movie theater, but we only get a new movie every week, and we don't get anything good because we're such a small town. So we don't get Star Wars until like 2 months after it's out, and that kind of thing.
Okay, so you get one movie.
One movie a week.
Okay, so that's a great detail, actually.
Yeah, and we only have one screen, so it's like, it's not very often you get anything here that's worth seeing.
Okay.
It's actually it's really funny because that's how we end up with lots of funny jokes, because we go to movies even if they don't look decent. Like the last one we saw was Trolls, and it was, I think, the worst movie we've ever seen. And it's just led to so many jokes about trolls. We've been leaving like trolls in each other's yards and like all sorts of stuff because of that.
Interesting. That's okay. No,
Super
that's okay. So even like, yeah, like small town living, like one movie a week, and you kind of milk the movie for all it's worth, even a bad one.
Yep.
Okay. Good. Now, how about you, Peyton? Did you jump right into the 6-word stories?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
I didn't bother with writing anything down. I just started writing stuff.
Okay. Do you want to share some of what you've got?
Maybe.
Okay. Well, do you want to think about that? Well,
Yeah, all right. Sure.
okay. How about Olivia? I'd be really curious to see your list.
You can see, I can show you, but it's not very interesting.
Well, it may be. Now, Liv's was very, very minimal, but once you started talking, you could see how there was more to add.
Mm-hmm. So, all right. I didn't quite finish this, but this is about my youngest sister.
Cool. Oh, that's cute. All right. Well, I like the fact you focus in on her squeaky voice. Okay, that's a really good detail. Okay, when she was 7, my mom made her cut her hair short, but even then she wouldn't brush it. Does she have a nickname?
Rosie is her nickname.
Okay, what is that short for?
Rosemary.
Rosemary. Okay. All right.
Yeah, so I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
Okay. How about other people? How about like Liv? Like, what are some details you want to like? Okay, I was curious if she had a nickname. That's one thing I wanted to know. Has this list piqued your curiosity?
Oh, are you talking to me?
Yes.
Oh.
So this is Olivia's list about her sister.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I like some of the details, like about the hair for sure. I find it, yeah, very descriptive.
Yeah, she had such tangly hair that she would only let my mom brush it when she was in the bath with conditioner in it. So.
Mm-hmm.
Now you mentioned her cutesy way of acting. So I'm curious about that.
Well, she's very dramatic. And
Okay.
She was the youngest child for the first little while of her life and got treated like very doted on by all of us.
Okay. Okay, that's a great deal. Okay, that's a really lovely word, doted. I haven't heard that in a long time. So does she get doted on because she's blonde?
I don't think so, but
Okay.
she gets doted on because she demands to be.
Okay. Okay, why don't you write that one down? She demands to be doted on. I think that's a great line. Because in a sense, those kind of, usually you dote on things that are maybe not demanding.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's good. Okay, so with Peyton, are there some pieces that you're willing to share?
There's nothing brilliant here.
Okay. Well,
Um,
maybe just really good will do today.
One I am fond of here is population 350 commuters and retirees.
Interesting. So is that the town you live in?
That's my hometown.
Okay, remind me the name
Back-
of your
Hmm?
What's the town?
The town was Rockyford.
Okay.
It's in southern Alberta, middle of nowhere. You're surrounded by cows and wheat fields.
Okay. All right. So what I'm thinking of is like you're a step ahead of us. Now, based on that list, so okay, I'm just thinking. Okay, now Liv, do you mind screen sharing for a minute? Okay, so based on all right, so you've got all right, so you've got some really good details here. So if you hit the hit the return to open up some new space, and just put like maybe let's just call it story number 1. All right, and so then as much as you can, just try. Okay, I'd hit the I'd hit the return again just to give yourself a new line. All right, so then okay, I'm just trying to think. Okay, unusual pranks. You've got some really okay. Each of those is really like I love the smoke pillars. So personally, I would try to write just one separate thing on the smoke pillars. I would definitely want a separate thing on the bored teenagers. And okay, so the pranks. Okay, now that's kind of a small town thing. Okay, I think you're still muted. Oops.
Okay, there we go.
Okay.
With the pranks, for sure, it's definitely a really funny thing. Like, some of them even go as far as to, like, my friend who gave me the car, he gave the extra key to my other friend so that he could break into my car and put a gnome in it. Like,
And what do you do with your car?
he took the extra key that he knew my friend had, and he broke into my car to put a gnome in it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so like just weird stuff like that happens.
Okay. So it's almost like it's almost like small town life. Like the pranks, but the idea is like if you can compress the prank into like a almost like a story of itself.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so okay, we've got about 15 minutes left. So okay, what I'm going to suggest is try to take your initial list and see if you can tease out separate little kind of strands. So like, for example, with Olivia, I would love for you to kind of try to capture your sister's personality. This kind of, like she went from being the baby of the family to now she's no longer the baby of the family. But it's almost like she's got a personality that, it sounds to me like she refuses to be ignored. Like she won't, is that true?
Definitely.
Definitely. Okay. So, all right. So let's take about 10 minutes, and we can all go off camera and mute, and then we'll have about 5 minutes left to share. Okay. Right.
I actually ended up writing four short stories.
Oh, perfect. Can you share those?
Yeah,
Did you keep yours to 6 words?
yeah. Or I tried. I think I did.
Okay.
So those were kind of my ideas. So I started with the unusual pranks. So gnomes in my car, why, how, which is literally what I thought when I found a gnome in my car. Because I was like, how did it get there?
Oh, that's
And then number 2 is smoke pillars. So gray, a little too much gray, which is kind of how I feel every day in Port Alberni.
okay. That's good.
And story 3, quirky neighbors. So ahoy, how are you today, Captain? And story number 4, bored teenagers, junk food, Nerf fights, good music. Because that's what
Okay.
we do when we're bored here.
Okay. I really like how you've done that. Okay. The only thing I would do if I were gonna, I would just maybe title it Port Alberni.
Yeah.
That gives it more specifics.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's wonderful. Um,
Okay. So where would you want me to title that? Just right up top? Just right about Port Alberni?
well, yeah. What I would, okay, just above the first short story, but
Mhm.
and I would just say Port Alberni. Port Alberni 6-word stories. Okay, that's good. Now you really worked well in this format.
Thank you.
Now, Olivia, I'd love to see what you did with that list.
I don't think. Well, I wrote a couple, but they weren't good.
Are you willing to share? Because what I wrote was not very good.
Well, sure, but there's only one that I kept.
Okay, that's good.
But all right. That's it.
Okay.
And then
Okay, Rosie demands one's there. Okay, I like it.
it doesn't. Well,
Well, you know what? I really appreciate your willingness to try these exercises. I mean, sometimes writing uh, about someone who's close to you is hard because you don't want to be unkind to them. All right, now, Peyton, can we end with one of yours? Oh, wow. Okay, you even went into different genres. Oh, I love the last one. Okay, can you just read it aloud? Okay, I think you're muted.
There.
There, okay. I'd just love to hear you read that section.
This is the hometown one.
Yeah.
Population 350 commuters and retirees. Nothing happens here until it does. Oh Christ, the tweenage gang's here. And sorry, the mayor's son did what?
Oh, that's priceless.
I really like the second one. The nothing happens here until it does.
Nothing happened in my hometown until there was a SWAT raid.
Mm.
Oh, wow. So you've got nonfiction. You've got, what is the top category?
That's fiction.
Okay.
I divided it into sections when I realized lines, I've changed it now, but lines like kill her immediately were next to stuff about my sister.
Okay. Okay. I think your nonfiction ones are really good. I love the hometown ones. I mean, that.
Yeah, I think the short story thing works really well. Some of the stories I have about my town.
Okay, now one of the learners I worked with last year, he wrote a series of 6-word stories about his brothers.
Okay.
And I'll get his permission to share those. I know he'd let me share them, but I need his permission. So, okay, I think that what's really worked well here is the topic of where you live, like small town. Now, Vernon, by comparison, is not really a small town. Now, Vernon has at least 2 movie theaters, right, Olivia?
Yeah, but one of them, yeah, we have 2.
Yeah, one of them is the multi-screen one. So okay, so this is a really great. Well, you know, the ability to write in a small space is really challenging. Now, this is something that I'll try to come up with some different ideas for next week, but I think this will be a shorter topic. And even like what you have here, Peyton, like this to me is a complete artifact. Like there's not a whole lot more I'd want to see. So I mean, once again, like it's working in a different format, but there's so okay. I love the last one where it says, "Sorry, the mayor's son did what?" Okay, to me, that is a perfect six-word story because it leaves you wondering, what did he do?
That's actually not based on a specific instance. Both his sons were major trouble. The second one, to the point of actually running into the law, in fact. I don't know if he ever went to court for that.
Wow. But even I mean, these are all really good. You know, and I just think it's a fun format to experiment with. And if you wanted to look for more inspiration, in this section where it says resources, there are links. I put those links into other websites with the 6-word stories. And there's tons of subcategories. So, and if you find some other ones on your own, if you can add those, that'd be great. Okay, so we went a little bit long today. And I can stay behind if anybody needs to talk about any work that you've submitted or.
Yeah, I actually can't seem to. It won't save my page that I just wrote for some reason. I'm not sure why.
Oh, okay, can you copy it and put it into something else for short term?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's all I have for today. And yeah, I'll look at the work you submitted the artifact to, and I'll give you a feedback file like I did last time. And I appreciate you turning the work in, and that way I can look at it, and maybe we'll have something to share next week. Okay, well, thanks again. And let me know if like I'll stay behind a few minutes if anybody needs to chat. Okay, so I'll see you all next week.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.